All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Tony is designing an intervention for a client whose aggressive behavior is maintained by escape from academic tasks. During a functional analysis, high rates of aggression were observed only in the demand condition. Before implementing an extinction-based procedure, Tony must prioritize what? Now, it's a little bit of an open-ended question because when we're going to implement an extinction-based procedure, there are a few things we want to think about. One, we want to make sure the entire team is on board, including stakeholders, because to do extinction effectively, we need it to happen as close to 100% of the time as possible. Two, if you're going to use extinction, remember, you are taking away a behavior that is serving a purpose. So we have to have something to replace that behavior with. Now, in Tony's case, if aggression is maintained by escape, and we've done the analysis, and it's only in the demand condition, then we can be pretty sure that escape is the function. So what must Tony prioritize for the client? A, developing a positive punishment procedure for aggression. Well, not necessarily. If we've just done the functional analysis and we want to use extinction, there's no reason to jump to punishment yet, right? Punishment should really be our last resort. We want to be reinforcement based and use extinction as part of a reinforcement package. B, identifying and teaching a functionally equivalent communication response for escape. Yes, that is going to be one of our things we want to use when we implement extinction. What are we going to replace that behavior with? Think about that fair pair rule. If I'm taking away a function serving behavior, what am I replacing it with? C, conducting a preference assessment for tangible items. Preference assessments are never bad, but here we're thinking about escape, we're thinking about demand. There's really not a need at the moment, based on this information, for a tangible item preference assessment. D, implementing a DRA procedure for compliance with demands. Now, yes, we could use a DRA procedure, but that's going to be part of an extinction-based procedure. We're talking about prior to any sort of differential reinforcement or extinction. So be careful there. So given the options and given the information, Tony is going to want to identify and teach a functionally equivalent communication response for escape, and then we can use some sort of differential reinforcement procedure. A group of scientists in a research lab is struggling with consistently documenting their experimental procedures, leading to reproducibility issues. The lab manager proposes a system where daily, if all members of a research team have fully documented their procedures for that day, the entire team receives access to preferred lab equipment for the following hour. This is an example of an what? Now, I like this question because it represents that not every question you get is going to be clinical. It's not going to be home-based, right? Because behavior in ABA applies to the real world. It applies to everything. So if you read this question and you psych yourself out because it's not necessarily about just working with the client, that's a mistake because it's really a pretty simple question. We have a group of scientists who are struggling with the behavior. The manager says, if all members of the team document procedures, the entire team receives access to preferred lab equipment. So let's just break that down. We've got a group under this contingency, so we know it's a group contingency. So now we just have to ask ourselves, what group contingency is it? We have A, interdependent. So if we have 3 scientists, all the scientists must do it. Dependent, if we have 3 scientists, it's going to be a hero procedure, and we're going to be relying on a small section or one person in the group. And then an independent, each person is responsible for themselves. In this case, all members have to document their procedures to receive access. So that leaves us easily with the interdependent group contingency. The worst thing you can do is read a question and get intimidated. If you just attack the question head on, there's no reason to be intimidated by the question. It's why we always attack the question first and then look at our answer choices. A behavior analyst is consulting with a small manufacturing firm that is experiencing frequent production errors leading to significant material waste. Observational data indicates that errors increase when workers are assigned to novel tasks without prior hands-on practice. The existing training primarily consists of video tutorials and written manuals. To most effectively reduce these errors, the analyst should recommend what? All right, another good example of a situation where you might read this question and say, well, I don't know anything about manufacturing. It doesn't matter. That's not what the questions are testing you on. They're testing you on your behavior knowledge, right? Your behavior analysis knowledge. Let's just break this down. We're trying to reduce errors. Start there. Now, what are the errors? The errors are in production and they lead to waste. Okay? Observational data says errors increase when workers are assigned to novel tasks without prior hands-on practice. Well, let's change workers to clients. If you give a client a novel task without hands-on practice, or a technician a novel task without hands-on practice, they commit errors. And the training is video tutorials and written manuals. So we know what the issue is. One, novel tasks, so unknown tasks. And two, there's no hands-on or feedback or modeling. It's all video and written based. So if we want to reduce these errors, what should we do? A, implement a response cost system for each error identified. Okay. Punishment, maybe, let's just say it's effective. We reduce errors, but we haven't taught anything. And two, there's got to be a better way to train, given the fact that these are novel tasks and they're not getting hands-on practice. So jumping to punishment is not the right option. B, provide monetary bonuses for error-free production weeks. Okay, reinforcement-based, that's good, but we can't just force these workers to get better at novel tasks when they're already struggling because they're not having this these hands-on practice. And we're talking mostly about the issues with the training. You've got to use the information given. C, developing a training program that includes in-situ rehearsal and feedback for novel tasks. Yeah, if the problem is there's no hands-on practice and it's just videos and written manuals, well, can we develop a training program to try to fix this issue before it even begins? Punishment might reduce errors, but we're not teaching them anything. Reinforcement may be effective, but how are we going to reinforce something that's not happening? They're not able to complete the task. So we need to go to the beginning and train better. And then D, because we read all of our answer choices, assign more novel tasks to encourage habituation. So what is that idea of habituation? Habituation is typically linked to respondent behavior, right? Where we expose someone enough to a stimulus and their reaction lessens. If you hear thunder, you might jump. The more you hear that thunder, the less you're going to jump. So it's not really relevant here. What we want to do is fix the training. Develop a training program that includes in-situ rehearsal and feedback for novel tasks. Lane frequently avoids doing their homework by complaining of a stomachache. When Lane complains, their mom usually allows them to skip homework for the night. To address this, the mom begins requiring Lane to complete 5 minutes of homework regardless of their complaints, then allows a short break, gradually increasing the homework time. This intervention is most an example of what? All right, pretty straightforward question. We're looking at the intervention here. We have a situation where Lane is avoiding homework by complaining, and it works, right? Lane complains, they skip homework. What is mom doing now? She is now forcing Lane to complete 5 minutes of homework, regardless of complaints. She's no longer providing the reinforcement for complaining. And when we withhold reinforcement for previously reinforced behavior, we consider that extinction. Now, let's look at our answer choices. A, positive punishment. Well, we're going to rule out positive punishment immediately. One, it doesn't appear to be punishing in any fashion here. It doesn't appear Lane's mom's attempting a punishment procedure. And two, we don't know how the behavior has changed. And that's important because when we think about negative reinforcement is associated with escape. So a short break is often viewed as a negative reinforcement procedure, right? You get that break. However, we don't know how the behavior has changed. So we can't say for sure if it's effective. What we do know is Lane's mom is using escape extinction. She's not allowing Lane to escape anymore. Do we know how the behavior is changing? No, but we are sure Lane's mom is trying to use extinction given she's withholding reinforcement. And then D, tangible extinction. Well, it's not tangible extinction because it is focused on that function of escape. So the answer here is C, escape extinction. Thanks so much for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. As always, work hard, study hard. See you soon.